Good morning, everyone. This is Moss. Let's talk about how to win with Kruleboyz and my thoughts on it as of May 2023. This army's come a long way, and I think this army's actually good now. I think that the latest changes to the Gutrippaz have actually made this army good. But let's look at it in more detail. So for those who are just listening, and for those who are relatively new to the army, first I'm just going to quickly recap the two main battle traits of this army. So first we have venom-encrusted weapons. If an unmodified hit roll for an attack made by a Kruleboy Auric, so not all attacks and not all models in the army, just the Aurics. If the attack roll is a 6, that attack causes a number of mortal wounds to the target equal to the weapon's damage characteristic, and the attack sequence ends. So it has no effects on mounts unless otherwise noted. So a few exceptions to this are Marshcrawler Slogoth doesn't get any venom-encrusted weapons. Hobgrots do not. The attacks from the Ironbound clubs from Break-a-Boss do not. And the Gnash Tooth attacks also do not. So most do, but some do not. And the second ability is our Kruleboyz Wah. So once per battle in the combat phase, when you pick a friendly Kruleboyz general to fight, you can say that they are calling the Kruleboy Wah. If you do so, pick 2 other friendly Kruleboy units wholly within 18 inches of that general that have not yet fought in the combat phase, and then they get to fight immediately after. So if it's your turn, you get to fight 3 in a row, and if it's not your turn, I'm pretty sure you can do it if it's not your turn. Yeah, in the combat phase. So you can do it on your opponent's turn, but they get to attack first, and then you get to attack 3 times in a row. So those are the two sort of battle traits for this army, just as a review. So what hasn't changed since my last video? My last video was several months ago, so what hasn't changed? So I think that the core fundamental strategy of this army hasn't changed. I think you can't really ignore the Kruleboy Wah. I think it's a very, very powerful effect to be able to fight 3 times in a row. It's sort of like a fake, like a mock strike first effect, right? It can be quite strong. So I still believe that you have to think about the Kruleboy Wah, you have to set up a good Wah, and then you have to execute a good Wah in order to really win games. Kruleboyz has struggled in the past, and while I think they're in a much better place now, I still think that you need to squeeze every bit of value out of this army as a way, like to snowball into a victory. So you have to think about the Wah, you have to set up the Wah, you have to execute the Wah, and hopefully that's enough to turn the tide in your favor in this game. So I think the fundamental strategy of this army has remained the same. Our Gutrippaz good now. So here's where the army has changed, is that the Gutrippaz have been changed significantly over time. They dropped 30 points since release. Everything about them is better. So Gutrippaz have been improved to a point where they're no longer terrible. We can take more of them and reinforce them without it feeling like we're just throwing our points away. And this is enabling many other parts of our army. The fact that we can take like 30 Gutrippaz, 40 Gutrippaz in a list, take a block of 20, take a block of 30. It cascades through the rest of our list. But first, let's look at the Gutrippaz. So -1 to hit matters a lot, and it affects multiple units. So it's not like pick a unit that's within 3 or within 1, it gets -1, right? It really is like, unless it's heroes and monsters, right? But all of the rest of the units that are attacking us, it's going to apply that -1 effect to potentially multiple units. It's also very good against units that we don't want to shoot with our Bolt Boys. With our Bolt Boys, we want to be the best targets for Bolt Boys are going to be foot heroes that we want to snipe off the board, right? Other archers shooting at us, big monsters that we want to like knock down their tier list that we can sink a whole bunch of mortal wounds into. What we generally don't like as much are units that are in blocks of 20, where, you know, they're going to take a bunch of damage, but then they're going to rally back, right? Where we're going to sink a bunch of damage, but we're not going to wipe the unit off the table, or units that we want to hold in combat, right? And Gutrippaz are actually good against those kinds of units. Like if there's a block of 20 clan rats on the table, like you don't want to shoot into it. They're just going to come back. You want to throw a bunch of Gutrippaz into them and then start fighting back and forth. Gutrippaz, now that they're better. They take Swamp Color buffs really well, especially if you have a block of 20. In a block of 20, you're expecting 12.3 expected mortals with the Swamp Color Shaman buff. If all 20 fight, right, you're getting 41 attacks, and 1 in 3 of those attacks is going to proc off a 5 or a 6. So a reinforced unit, they take those buffs really well. Their 2-inch range built in lends itself to being reinforced, right? Like you're not gonna have to take the Mizgalatian veterans. They're gonna be able to get in and fight. 41 attack rolls is very good with venom encrusted weapons, right? Getting back even without the 5 or a 6, you're still gonna push. 41 dice is a lot of 6s, right? It's a lot of 6s to push through, even if it's nothing else. Like, they're gonna deal damage against whatever it is that they're fighting. And a reinforced unit of Gutrippaz is an excellent super sneaky candidate. You can sneak in from behind, you can pin them in the front, you can flank, you can just sit all the way in some back corner on the back of an objective. It's significantly better than Hobgrots. Hobgrots just melt, right? They're not as effective. So a reinforced unit of Gutrippaz is a very good sneaky, super sneaky candidate. So Gutrippaz, they're not terrible anymore. Like, I think they're good, and it changes our army. So the fact that Gutrippaz are good, what does that mean for the army as a whole? Well, it allows us to take more space out on the map. If we're running more actual bodies, we're able to actually push out onto the map and take space. This means that we have a much easier time taking objectives, something that we've struggled with in the past, and that's how you win the game, right? You take objectives, complete battle tactics, that's how you win. Taking more space also allows us to move Bolt Boys into the center of the map. I like a turn 1 run, where you just run them up the board turn 1. That seems pretty good to me. Because we're taking more space, it lets our Sludge Rakers get into a better position so that they can move up and take the Wa. The Sludge Raker is the best Wa piece that we have, and we want to get it in the Kruleboy Wa because it has that a 12-inch buff zone around it. So if it can get into the middle and buff the other 2 Wa pieces, that's just going to enable us even more. I already mentioned this before, but Super Sneaky is very strong with 20 Gutrippaz. I mean, you can pin them in their deployment zone. It's scary. If you can put 20 Gutrippaz behind the enemy and sneak in from behind and pin everything in place, you're going to set up that Kruleboy Wa a lot more easily, right? The board is going to be yours. You're going to be able to move up and think about it and set it up. It's great. The Swamp Color Shaman might be the best unit in our army. Points, point for point, at 100 points, what it does. Our spell lores are really good. Its ability is really good. So to run more shamans feels good. Like, it feels good. Shaman buff Gutrippaz are a good choice for Wa. 10 Gutrippaz is not particularly a great Wa choice, but 20 is. 20 is going to deal a lot of damage, so feels good. It really feels like these Gutrippaz are just enabling every other thing in our army, right? Super Sneaky's better, it's easier to get points. Swamp Color Shamans feel better. Bolt Boys are able to get into better positions. Like, it's feeling really good. So here's this turn 1 combo on, and this is with the fact that you can actually use Gutrippaz better. It is what's enabling this turn 1 combo. So you Super Sneaky 20 Gutrippaz, or we're gonna try testing Super Sneaking 30 Gutrippaz, or we're also gonna try to play test Super Sneaking 30 Hobgrots into place. Regardless, 20 Gutrippaz is a significant force. It's scary. I was playing against my friend and they did this to me, but they put 20 Gutrippaz behind my deployment zone and they came in from the back, and it's scary. 20 Gutrippaz is a lot. You can get a significant portion of your opponent's army stuck in combat on turn 1. It's also a great flavor, right? All these foot soldiers, all these spear wielding Gutrippaz are coming out from a front like a surprise ambush. It's great flavor. If we're playing a 2 units of reinforced Gutrippaz, it still means we have 20 Gutrippaz at home to take the middle. It's not like we're investing all of our front line here, so that's good. The only thing you need to do is you need to watch redeploy, and you also need to pick targets that are going to get that -1 to hit. So if you can flank from the side into another like screen or into some heroes or something like that's good, right? But you have to sort of think about that -1 to hit. Don't pick a big monster, right? Because you're not gonna get the benefit. And then part 2 of this combo is we have all of these debuffs. We have Choking Mist, -1 to the attack characteristic. It's turn 1, so we're gonna have Noisy Racket, -1 to wound, and the Gutrippaz have their built-in -1 to hit, -1 AC, -1 to wound, -1 to hit on a lot of models. Right, the -1 to wound applies to their whole enemy army. Choking Mist applies to everything within 6, so you're going to be able to hit everything that's in the area that you're going to be fighting most likely. And the Gutrippaz give that -1 to hit to non-monster, non-hero units. So you're going to cripple. You're going to cripple your opponent for, if you're taking turn 1 for turn 1 for their turn, right? Their turn 1, and then if they double turn you, their turn 2. Without the -1 to wound. But still, like with that Choking Mist is nasty. It's nasty. You can just cripple your opponent. Part 3 of the combo is Tunnel Master Swamp Calla Shaman. You just take the Swamp Calla Shaman and pop them right behind the unit that's moved in. So if the unit survives or dies, you have a nasty Hex if you want it. You have the Black Pit if you want it within range. And you can also buff that unit of Gutrippaz for the following turn. And like if they survive, you can give them that 5-up mortal proc. Right? It's great. Oh, and in addition, you also have Summon Boggy Mist. Daddy. You also have Summon Boggy Mist for +1 charge. In addition, so those Gutrippaz that are flanking are going to get that +1 to charge. So if your opponent, rolls a really lucky redeploy, moves 6 away, and you're 9 inches away, let's say, because that's the worst case scenario, is that you're 9 inches away, that you'll get that +1 to charge, which is really good. And if we're really lucky, we'll also get off a Disappearing Act. We can lift screens. We can lift their crummy screens and get into something that we actually want to kill. It's scary. If all of these things go off, like, it's scary. It's like, okay, like, let's play. Okay, Kruleboyz player goes first. Okay, well, actually, here's 20 Gutrippaz in your backline, and -1 AC, -1 to wound. You can't run, -1 to hit. You also get -1 to charge. I get +1 to charge, and we're gonna lift the screen out of the way, and boom, here I am. It's like, oh, and my shaman's back here to help out for next turn. It's like whatever plan your opponent had is gone. It's gone. And they're looking at you across the table like what? Like, what did you just do to me? Like, it's scary. You should give this a try. It's a lot of fun. So now let's go through the rest of the details of the army, like all the enhancements and all the choices, and we will see how all of these choices can help with our sort of overall strategy here, which is this sort of turn 1 combo and then trying to set up a Kruleboyz. So Noisy Racket for Dirty Tricks is your auto pick. You get to pick 2. So I think Disappearing Act is obviously the next best choice if it works. If your opponent has non-reinforced units with low wounds, then this is going to be it for sure, especially if you're trying that turn 1 combo. Oh, I think I forgot to mention this point too. Yeah, so with Disappearing Act, if you're gonna throw a whole bunch of Gutrippaz at your opponent, especially if you can get it into their backline, you get to, like, it's your turn on turn 1, right? So you get to put them there, and then you get to move, and then you get to charge, and then you get to pile in. So with 20 Gutrippaz or 30 Gutrippaz, you're gonna zone out a huge amount of their deployment zone. So it's gonna be really uncomfortable for them where they're gonna be able to put the units that you lifted off the table with Disappearing Act. Like, where they're going to put them back on the table, you can make it really awkward and uncomfortable for them, and that it's just value on value on value. So if you can, Disappearing Act is the way to go. If Disappearing Act doesn't work, Lethal Surprise is fine, but it's not super great. I also recommend taking terrain features, not objectives, for Lethal Surprise. And then Covered in Mud is just bad, because we're going to be taking Grin and Blades. Right, we're invisible outside of 12, and so being invisible while in cover it's like stacking, but it's not stacking well. Like, it's just not a great option. So Grin and Blades is the best subfaction that we have. We're definitely going to take it. The only reason that Big Yellows was played before was because Gutrippaz were so terrible that we didn't want to take Gutrippaz, but we're going to take Gutrippaz. So, Grin and Blades all the way. Spells, Choking Mist is our best spell by far. It has that nice 24-inch range plus a 6-inch bubble. It's very good. -1 EC is a very, very great great effect. It also combos well with everything else that we're doing in our army. Sneaky Miasma is also a really great choice. Moving our monsters around helps us get our wall off. Nasty Hex is also very strong. There's lots of enemy models running around with wards. So being able to, being able to remove them is great. Super, super useful. And the Black Pit is just our worst spell, in my opinion, but still a very good spell. Still a great spell. So, you know, if you ever take a spell enhancement and you have to take another spell or whatever, like the Black Pit's still good. Still a great spell. Command traits. Super Sneaky is the only real command trait, in my opinion, now that's worth taking. Egomaniac before I thought was fine, but Super Sneaky is the way to go all the way. The only real question is who should you take as your general, either the Sludge Raker or the Vulture, and there's some back and forth discussion between me and my Discord community people who are having this conversation about, well, who's a better general. I tend to think that the Vulture is a better general, but the Sludge Raker is also a perfectly fine general. The reason that I think Vulture's better is because his base is a better shape. Not that that's a very small benefit, but the Vulture also, with his 14 movement speed, can get into position to call the Wah a lot better than the Sludge Raker. But the Sludge Raker is fine. Like, if your Sludge Raker's getting into the Wah, that's good, right? That's a good thing. So planning on him being in the Wah is fine. Like, that's a totally fair strategy. I think it comes down more to personal preference and your local meta and your play groups and so on and so on. But either one, it doesn't matter who has the Super Sneaky command trait, I guess is what I'm saying. Either one can have Super Sneaky, makes no difference. Artifacts of Power, Mork's Eye Pebble is the best, and it's the best on the Sludge Raker. There's a lot of shooting out there, shooting meta, and all of your damage and all of your units that you want to protect are going to be within 12 of the Sludge Raker the vast majority of your games. So having a 5-up board against shooting seems really good and really strong, and there's nothing else that really compares. The Arcane Tome used to be good, but since they removed lore spells from it, it's not as strong, and we don't generally tend to run endless spells in this army. So taking an like either a 5-up board against shooting, or what are you taking? A Mystic Shield cast, right? Doesn't feel super good. So for Artifacts of Power, I'm firmly Mork's Eye Pebble. I think is definitely the way to go. Definitely the way to go. Mount traits, Fast and Again. This is the only mount trait I think that's worth its salt. Moving in the hero phase is amazing. There's so many things you can do with this. You can put it on a Break a Boss, Super Sneaky Break a Boss, move the Super Sneaky Boss without triggering a redeploy. That's a little sneaky trick you can use. And then again, like Sludge Raker versus the Vulture, who takes Fasten. Vulture has a 14-inch move, so Vulture being able to move 14 in the hero phase and then 14 in the move phase and then charge, like the Vulture can get basically anywhere on the table that it wants, especially given that it can also fly. But taking Fasten on a Sludge Raker means that you're going to be able to more consistently get the Sludge Raker into position and in range for that Kruleboyz. So again, it sort of comes down to your preferences here. I'm going to try playing it on the Sludge Raker, I think, for the foreseeable future to see how it feels, because I've generally played it on the Vulture in the past, but I think Sludge Raker might be a very good candidate for this mount trait with the lists that I'm putting together presently. For Aspect of the Champion, I think Tunnel Master is your go-to, being able to take a Galatian champion and put it onto an objective somewhere on the map, or following up with a super sneaky unit of Gutrippaz. It feels really good to me, feels really strong, so I think definitely 100%. Honorable mention, Leadership of the Alpha. A triple Unleash Hell is cool. A triple redeploy in your backline is cool and good. So even a triple all-out attack for a Wah turn is good. All of these things are all good. So Leadership of the Alpha, I think, is an honorable mention. But Tunnel Master, I think, is going to be the go-to the majority of the time. For battalions, I am 100% now in unified. I'd take 2 unified battalions because I want to control who gets to take turn 1, because I want to be able to take advantage of my turn 1 combo. Or if the army I'm playing against, I want them to go first, right? Like, I really feel like I want to control who's going first. And the other one would be like Magnificent, but the extra enhancement, there's not really much that I want. Right, Leadership of the Alpha is fine. Arcane Tome with Mystic Shield is fine, but Griff Feather, like, you know, we sort of run out of options. It just seems like choosing who goes first is better than any additional enhancement that we can pick, right? We have all the spells that we want. Having that extra command point once per game is good, right? But I'm kind of all about the unified at this point. I want to be able to control who goes first playing with this army. For grand strategies, there's a few that are worth talking about. I think a good just go-to is Wa, right? You need to either your general or a friendly battle line is holding within enemy territory. If your general's still alive and it's a Vulture, it's very easy to just at the very end of the game put it into enemy territory, right? With the auto run 6, you can move 20 inches, so that's pretty easy. You're also probably going to be super sneaking something into the enemy territory, and you're going to be aggressive with the rest of your battle line units because you're going to try to take the map and take space. So it's a pretty easy one to get. Defend what's ours. Making sure there's no units holding within your territory is also pretty easy because of your Bull Boys, right? They start in your territory and they're going to be shooting anything that's coming in behind them or flanking them off to the side, so it's pretty easy to shoot off anything that's in your own territory. In and out, lads, is the Kruleboyz specific grand strategy. So when the battlefield ends, you complete this strategy if that general has not been slain and fewer than half of the units in your starting army have been destroyed. So this is actually relatively easy to do because we have a lot of units that are sitting quiet in the back line, right? We're going to run 2 or 3 shamans. We got a couple units of Bull Boys, right? Like, it's pretty easy for us to keep a lot of our units alive while like a block of Gutrippaz are going to go down, right? Maybe like one of our monsters are going to go down, but it's a pretty easy one to accomplish. And finally, the day is ours. When the battlefield ends, you complete this grand strategy if there are more friendly Galatian champions from your starting army than friendly champions from your opponent's starting army. We have 3 Galatian champions, generally, because I'm running 3 Swamp Call Shamans right now. So if you're also running 3 Swamp Call Shamans, they're pretty easy to keep safe, right? Because they're standing right beside an Unleash Shell, they're standing beside a Sludge Raker, right? They're invisible outside of 12 inches. So it's generally pretty easy to keep these things alive. So that's another good one. But I tend to go for Wa almost every time. So for battle tactics, there's a couple from our book that are good. So time to get stuck in. You can only pick this on the first or second turn, but every one of your units has to be within 12 inches of an enemy unit by the end of that turn. So this is one you just got to keep an eye out on. If you're being alpha struck, this one's easy. If you're gonna be aggressive and push everything up the map, you can, maybe on turn 2, everything's within 12. But like, this is one you just have to think about and keep in mind, right? Because if you can tick this one off your list on turn 1 or turn 2, it's definitely worth doing. And the other one from our book is take a dat, yes, suckers. So we need to complete 2 criteria. The first one, we have to deal 10 wounds. We have to take fewer than 10 wounds. So this is a shooting turn. If all you're gonna do is shoot with your Bolt Boys and there's not much else that's gonna go on, right? There you go, perfect, right? Shoot out 10 wounds and no combat, right? Or only 1 activation. So hopefully you're taking fewer than 10 wounds. Yeah, it's great. Good battle tactics. And then the ones from the seasonal book, the 4 that have nothing to do with Galatian champions are all pretty easy for us to get. Gain momentum, right? Pick an enemy unit on the battlefield and kill it and control more objectives than your opponent. That's a pretty easy one to get, right? You just kind of wait for your turn. Eye for an eye is kill the unit if a unit of yours was killed. That one's pretty easy to get too. Desecrate their land is a good turn 1 combo, right? You're going to super sneaky a bunch of units into their territory, so you just pick a terrain feature that is going to be close to you. Jump on there, right? And pick it. So that's a good turn 1. And this one's mine. Pick one enemy unit on the battlefield and destroy it with a model pick that's your general. So this is a good the Wa turn. This is a good one to pick. Probably whatever you're fighting with your general is going to die. So that's a good one to take for Wa turn. And then the other 4 that are part of this season's General's Handbook, which goes away in like a month or something, a month or 2. they're tricky, so, you know, keep them in mind, but they're a lot harder to get. So if you're making a plan, I'd say between these 4 and these 2, that's kind of what you're looking at. You sort of have to make it work with these ones, and if you can get the Galatian Champion ones to go off, then you're in luck, but they're harder to get. So lists. So here's the core of the list that I'm playing right now. Vulture with is my general, a Sludge Raker Beast, triple Shaman, a block of 20 Gutrippaz and a block of 10 Gutrippers minimum, and then a mandatory inclusion of 10 Hobgrots. This is the core of the list. And then there's a bunch of lists that like are built off here. So let's have a look at some of these lists here. So here is, I'd say this is sort of like the default one that I'm going with right now. So, you know, Grid of Blades, Gur, Wah, we take the Inspired Triumph, all that's fine. This is what it looks like if the leader is a Snatcher Boss on Sludge Breaker Beast. So we got Super Sneaky, Mork's Eye, Pebble, and Fasten. Kill a Boss on Corpse, Rip a Vulture. And then we have our triple Shamans. One with Nasty Hex, and that has Tunnel Master, so we can get in range if we need to. And then Choking Mist, Sneaky Miasma, 2 blocks of 20 Gutrippaz. Or you could run a 30 and a 10. This is an interesting thing to experiment with. A block of 30 super sneaky Gutrippaz is super scary. It's super scary. 2 times 6 Bolt Boys and a mandatory Hobgrots. In this list, I was 30 points short, so I threw in a Burning Head. But you could also take another Endless Spell, Suffocating Grid Tide. I don't think that sitting at 1970 points is smart. I think throwing in an Endless Spell is a better choice. You're not gonna get the Triumph sitting 30 points under, right? You're not going to get it most of the time, and so having just another little option is good. And Double Battle Regiment, 160 wounds. This is a lot more wounds. 160 wounds is a lot more wounds than I'm used to running in lists. It's because of these Gutrippaz. It's because of these Gutrippaz. It's been working out really well. Let's see. Let's look at some more lists. So that's the 40. Here's a very similar list. This one is running, instead, we're running 20 and 10 Gutrippaz. Everything's the same. Except this one, the Kill a Boss is the general, right? But it's, you know, you could snatch a boss or kill a boss. Either one could be your general, depending on your playstyle. But here, we're running 30. Instead of running 10 extra Gutrippaz and the Endless Spell, what we're running is 30 Hobgrots instead. We're coming up at 1980 points here. So this is if you wanted to run 3 times 10 Hobgrots, just Hobgrots running all over the map. You're gonna super sneaky 20 Gutrippaz, and at home you're gonna have 10 and then 3 Hobgrots letters. Like, you're gonna take objectives on the map with this list, definitely. Or you can try 30 Hobgrots that are being super sneakied into the back. That's another option you can try too. I haven't tried that out yet, but like, it just seems fun. 30 Hobgrots, and then they're gonna throw all their grenades, right? And they can run and shoot. So, like, you're gonna get them into a position. Maybe you can snipe off like a low wound hero or something. Like, seems good to me. Okay, let's look at another list. Let's see. So this is another list that's very similar. But the thing that's different about this list is we cut 10 Gutrippaz, so we're only running 20 and 10 Gutrippaz, and we're playing a Break a Boss. So in the other list, I had 30 extra points to run an Endless Spell. So here I'm taking out 150 and the 30, and we sit at exactly 2,000 points. Double Battle Regiment as always, but the thing with the Break a Boss is that he slaps pretty hard. So if you wanted to have a strategy where you super sneaky a Break a Boss and then you fast and move him, or you could put the fast in on another hero as well, right? But he can delete whatever it is that is in front of him. You're gonna expect something like 12 to 16 wounds against a 4-up save with the Break a Boss. So if there's like a hero that you want to get rid of, like a fighty monster that you want to get rid of, you know, if it's like a 300 point monster or something, this guy can you can put him down, charge him in, kill the thing, and then your opponent still has to deal with a Break a Boss in their line, which is not the hardest thing to do, but still. So this is another strategic choice that you could run for sure. Okay, let's see. Here's another one that's kind of this. I'm not a big fan of this list, but what we're running is we're running rock guts. We're running rock guts. We cut a unit of Gutrippaz and replace them with a unit of rock guts, sitting at 1920. So this list is great. The rock guts are just going to be like a hammer, like an anvil. They're going to sit in the center of the map, and they're going to be hard to get rid of. That's basically it. If you like rock guts, you can definitely run rock guts in this list. You could also, it looks like, to run 2 times 10 Gutrippaz and then 2 times 3 rock guts, but not as big of a fan. Not as big of a fan. I think the other lists are better than this list, but I decided to throw it together anyway. Okay, now we get on to some really interesting lists. These lists are a little bit different than the other ones because they play chronomantic cogs. So I blew my mind yesterday. What cogs does, you cast it with a swamp called a shaman, and then all your other shamans that are within 6 of the cogs get to re-roll their casts. They get to re-roll their casts. So, and cogs goes off pretty easy. I think it goes off on a 6 if I'm remembering correctly. So it goes off on a 6, and then you cast Choking Mist and Summon Boggy Mist with a re-roll each. That's good. It's good if you're trying to get that turn 1 combo off. It's going to help with consistency. This unit also runs no Hobgrots. It runs a 20 and then 2 times 10 Gutrippaz. Because for points, we can sit at exactly 2,000 points. And we're also going to run a Soul Snare Shackle for 40 points. This is a good endless spell for us. It helps against any kind of teleporting or deep striking army. It's going to help keep things away from us. So that's good. I like it. It's a good endless spell. So this is another good list. If you wanted to lean a little bit more into that turn 1 combo and you wanted to make sure that it goes off with 20 Gutrippaz, cogs is good. Here's a list that's leaning into that idea even more. So we've upgraded a Kiloboss with Gobsprak. We upgraded a Kiloboss to Gobsprak. We cut a unit of Gutrippaz. So we have 90 points left. I can't remember exactly how the math works out. But basically, you're playing Gobsprak, Chronomantic Cogs, same idea for that turn 1, those 3 shamans hanging around the cogs. And then Gobsprak can fly forward, be aggressive, and cast Gnashing Jaws at the opponent. So this is just more of a spell casty list. Throw 10 Gutrippaz in their back line with Super Sneaky, right? Make some space for Gobsprak. He's going to come up, throw Jaws. Your cogs are in the back line. Like, this is decent. This looks like a fun list. If you want to play Gobsprak, I would say play this list. I would say is the way to go right now for sure. Super fun. Super interesting. And then I think I got one more list. So this is a list that includes Scragrot, because everyone loves Scragrot right now, right? So to make this list work, what we had to do was cut one of the Swamp Call Shamans. We just needed the points, because we still have to run the 20, the 10 Gutrippaz, and the 10 Hobgrots, and the 2 times 6 Bullboys. So to make this list, I wanted to, because I'm sitting at exactly 2,000 points. So to make this list work, I had to cut a Swamp Call Shaman. So, but we're still running cogs. So Scragrot with that +1 to cast can cast cogs. And then after that, he's going to do his Fangs of the Bad Moon, right? He's going to shoot Fangs of the Bad Moon. The other 2 Swamp Call Shamans are going to cast... Oh, this is wrong. It shouldn't be. This should be Sneaky Miasma, maybe. Although Nasty Hex is fine. So Scragrot's going to cast, like I said, the Jaws and the cogs. And then your other guys are going to cast Choking Mist and Summon Boggy Mist on turn 1. Seems good. You're going to have 2 +1 Unbinds, which is good, right? Seems strong. Yeah, I mean, Fangs of the Bad Moon with a reroll, like goddamn, like it just seems so good. So if you really want to play Scragrot, this is an example list that you can check out as well. So that's going to be it for this video. If you're interested in checking out more of the lists or brainstorming or talking about this game with me, please be sure to check out the link in the description to come join the Discord. We're also getting enough people to, well, I'm trying to get enough people that we can do like a league, right? Like some on Tabletop Simulator or something. That should be fun. We're also in the process of testing out these lists. So every game that I play on TTS, if someone's not playing orcs, I play orcs in some capacity. Gotta practice, gotta play test, gotta get better. So like, subscribe, and wah.